The next section, someone asked me about the best way to approach a client with the tax-free strategy of max funding a life contract in today's marketplace. We have strong feelings about why there's so many people interested in this market. You'll find courses around the country, how to find the money, where to find the money, how we show you how to move and how to create buckets. But when you look at the numbers of people that are actually writing these cases and having success with the amount of people that are working these programs, it's a very small percentage. Our feeling is when you go into somebody and you start talking about max funding a life contract for tax-free retirement, there's major decisions that are going to be made to make that prospective client buy the program and become an active participant. He's going to have to be moving in money from different sources. He's going to be taking money perhaps from a securities broker that he's been working with to move it into the side fund. They're going to be taking non-performing assets, which may be non-performing in their mind, but someone who wrote that particular vehicle may have a different approach to the prospective asset. There's just a lot of decisions that are made, and that's why agents wind up working on clients. Not a lot of closing, but a lot of chasing, a lot of working, a lot of multiple appointments. Our feeling is it's a major decision to be made, and for some people it's too much of a decision to actually ever make a decision. And the other thing is there's too many moving parts and too much to do, too much due diligence. It's a very difficult decision for a lot of clients to make. What's part of building this program, though, is examining their current life contracts, because a lot of times we'll use old traditional products, the cash values of old products on 1035 exchanges to help fuel these buckets and to build these tax-free retirement contracts. Our belief is if you examine the life contracts that have blanketed this country and you look at the types of policies that people actually have in their existing portfolios, you will come to the conclusion that most Americans are sitting in life portfolios that are completely outdated or completely inappropriate for them, and that the vast majority of Americans, if they could look at their life contracts from an actuarial standpoint, examine the different options that are waiting for them down the road, for example with term buyers and so forth, if people had all the information they need to make an informed decision as to whether they should continue what they're in or maybe make a change, we feel that most consumers will make changes. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal by a good friend of mine, Gordon Gaddy, who used to be the past president of Fireman's Fund, and he wrote in an article for the Wall Street, life insurance is the only industry that tries to keep people from trading in obsolete products for new improved versions. And I'm a firm believer of this. So what we found is the best way to approach tax-free retirement, where we have great success and we write a lot of business and we do get people to become participants in this strategy, is to start with their existing portfolios. Now let me give you an example of how we look at this concept. It's our belief there are 4 types of life insurance policy holders in the marketplace today. There are people that have term insurance. There are people that have fixed universal life contracts. There are people that have traditional whole life policies, or consumers that have variable life. And of course, there's people that don't have any life insurance. That is a 5th category, and there is a way to handle that. Now, for those of you working in the organization, know we've created a great full-page MAD. How long you're going to ignore your life insurance. We call it the old ostrich advertisement that we've run in a lot of newspapers, where all those subjects are addressed in that one article. So it's a great sales tool, and I suggest if you're not using it that you do. But if we examine each one and we look at the potential situations of what people are in and the potential pitfalls of the type of life contract they have, you will find great opportunity. You will find people in situations where they suddenly realize, after a good explanation of what they own, that changes need to be made. Now let's start with the first category. I run into a lot of folks who bought term insurance. A lot of wealthy clientele buy very large term plans, and the most popular plan is 20-year term insurance from what I've seen in the marketplace. A lot of these folks who are buying these term plans have full intent of keeping this life insurance until their passing as a death benefit for their heirs and their loved ones. They'll look at their term plan, and on the front cover it'll say they're covered to age 100, guaranteed renewable to age 100, and they may start off with an initial 20-year plan. The vast majority of these consumers are not fully, they do not have a full understanding of what can happen in the future of one of these plans. Now let me give you an example. If you ever look into the back of the policy, sometimes it's in the front, but most consumers have never looked in to see what the guaranteed contractual rate is of a 20-year term in year 21. It's usually not discussed at the point of sale from the term agent. But if you show them that rate, typically I just saw one the other day and I used it in a class we just taught today. This gentleman was paying $7,500 a year for a 20-year term. He was in his 50s. It was $1.5 million death benefit. In year 21, the contractual guaranteed premium went from $7,500 to $117,500. Now, when he looked at this rate and we discussed it, he said, "Is that the rate I have to pay in year 21? And I said, "No, not if your health hasn't changed. If you're in good health, you just take another exam and you look for a much better rate." But what this policy is saying is if you are uninsurable and you are unable to pass a medical exam in year 21, they'll guarantee to continue your coverage at that rate. So when we looked at the conversion privilege of this policy, we found a gentleman who had 10 years to convert if his health changed without ever taking a medical exam. Well, he was in year 12 of a 20-year term, so he had gone beyond his conversion period. He's now faced with the possibility, if his health changes in the next 8 years, of not being healthy enough to pass an exam and being in a position where continuing the death benefit for his loved ones was going to be virtually impossible because of the escalating premiums. So when we looked at this and we examined it, the client realized he was rolling the dice with his insurability. And as we all know, a lot can happen in an 8 or 10-year spread, especially the older you get when you start talking about health issues. I now had a client who was anxious for a solution. As opposed to going in and saying, "Oh, with that term plan, look at all the money we can move into it and the different things," we had to straighten it out in the beginning by dealing with why are we not going to keep that and why is it better to get into something different. So what we explained was you need to get into a permanent plan. You need to guarantee that your insurability from today will go to the end of the road at age 120, whatever comes first. Once they understood the importance of converting to a permanent plan for the sake of insurability, the rest was easy. Once we made that change, the question was, okay, well, what's it going to cost me now to guarantee coverage to age 100? And I explained with a universal life chassis, we can set it up so that there's very little cash at age 100 and we can streamline the premium down. And here's the minimum premium that you would need from this point on to carry out your protection to age 100. I said, but what you may want to do, and this is the second part of what we're going to discuss, is I don't believe you were aware that the tax code was very specific, and it said for a gentleman your age buying a death benefit of $1.5 million, you have the ability to store a lot of cash into a permanent plan to become self-insured by your own contributions into the future. And the tax code allows these contributions to accumulate on a tax-free basis, and they also allow these contributions to be accessed on a tax-free basis through policy loans. So instead of looking at, okay, let's guarantee your insurability, here's the minimum premium to do so, let's go to the other end of the spectrum and ask, would it make sense for you to find out what the tax code allows you to put in as a maximum? And the quickest way that that money could be put into that contract to stay under the guidelines to have tax-free access to your cash. Well, with this particular client, he literally, and I didn't know this at the time, was a gentleman who had a large deposit of cash sitting in a very, very liquid situation, and he was looking for a place to put it. When we discussed the options and we went through a lot of the slides in the PowerPoint to talk about the contractual guarantees and the current rate of return and the believability and conceivability of such, we had a client who was ready to take an application. This gentleman, though, wanted to max fund the contract as opposed to minimum fund. And then we had to address, well, in this illustration, why would I put $500,000 in here in 5 years, if my death should occur, my wife is only going to get $1.5 million, and that's part of the cash value. I would have been better off leaving it over where it was, even if it didn't get a rate of return, because if I passed in 5 years, she would get both the $1.5 million and the cash value. That just needed a quick explanation of option B, increasing face, where the $1.5 million is purchased every year, and the cash value accumulations are paid at death to the beneficiary in addition to the face amount. When that illustration popped up, he said, that's what I want, set me up with a max funding, increasing face, and I want to take the exam, and this is exactly what I was looking for. Now that was a case for 2 individuals because his partner in the business did the same thing. But again, I don't know where it would have went or how successful I would have been attacking it from a max funding in the beginning. When we looked at his current plan of insurance and exposed the pitfalls, I had a guy who was half listening who became a serious listener, and a gentleman who had a serious mission now to make sure that he solved that issue of insurability, and of course that led to the tax-free retirement situation, which was perfect for this gentleman in his situation. So again, looking at the current portfolios, in this case term insurance, it was an easy sale once the pitfalls of that program were identified. Now,